This is the Detroit Sports Podcast Network.
What's up, Detroit sports fans? Welcome to the Fan Report Show, made by fans, for fans, powered by the Detroit Sports Podcast Network. I'm Nick, and with me, Xander's going to give us this week's topics.
Well, the Pistons had lost 16 in a row to the Bucks going into Monday, but you just don't beat the Pistons 17 in a row. No one does that. It's the Fan Report.
I've heard the old saying of it's hard to beat a team twice. How hard is it to beat a team 16 or 17 times in a row?
You don't do it.
Apparently you don't do it 17 times, that's for sure. But you can do it 16.
Apparently you can do it 16. As bad as the Pistons have been, that's how you can do it 16.
Just out of curiosity, how far back does that go? Because obviously we got swept by the...
times a year since they're in our division.
Plus the 4-game sweep.
I'd say probably, let's call it 4 years.
Is it?
3 years, yeah, plus
3 years,
because
the 4-game sweep, too.
Yeah.
So, 3 years. That's still pretty brutal to not beat a team for 3 whole years.
Basically, since Giannis started really coming
actually
to his own.
Being a good player in this league. Got it. And now he's an absolute monster, and nobody knows how to stop him.
Yep.
Well, I don't know if there is a way to stop him. He's 7 feet tall, can shoot, can drive the lane, can handle the ball, can pass the ball, can dunk, can do whatever he wants. And he's athletic as hell.
I mean, I had to bet $100 on Caesars to get that, free jersey NBA store gift card thing.
I heard a lot of people had problems with that.
I haven't gotten it.
Really?
But that's what I bet on. Over points against the Pistons. No one's stopping Giannis from getting 28. No one on this team is going to stop from doing that. Yet they almost did. They almost stopped.
They almost stopped them.
I had to wait till the last couple minutes of the fourth quarter to get those points.
Hey, you got them, though. That's what counts. The Lions season's winding down. I wanted to kind of kick it off with them. I know we didn't mention them in the pre-show, but I wanted to kick it off with them just so that we can get them out of the way at this point before we dive into...
Just a formality.
It's a formality at this point. But they played this past weekend, got absolutely mollywopped by the Seattle Seahawks. 51-29, was that the score?
Mm-hmm.
Wasn't a pretty showing. Obviously, they didn't have the Lions didn't have their starting quarterback in Jared Goff, but I don't think it would have changed too much.
No.
But what did you think of Tim Boyle? Did he play well enough to say that, okay, this guy can be the backup quarterback for this team next year? Or are we going to continue to, be on that quarterback carousel in the backup position for a while?
He had his moments, but those interceptions they weren't pretty. They weren't like interceptions where I'm like, oh, what are you gonna do? They were pretty bad. But no, I'll say this: the highs were better than I've seen this season from Tim Boyle, which gives me at least a sliver of optimism. But no, I'm not super confident that he's going to be our quarterback going. Well, that I want him to be our backup quarterback going forward. I mean, this is a Seahawks team that, while their secondary started off pretty strong to start the season,
it has kind of fallen off quite a bit.
Yeah, I think going into this game, they let 100-yard receivers in 3 of the last 4, I want to say, and they let up another one on Sunday with Amon-Ra St. Brown.
You're absolutely right, and I'm kind of lockstep here with you, and I think Dan Campbell even kind of said the same thing, not so much as to say that he doesn't believe in Tim Boyle to be the backup quarterback for this team long term, but he did say that Tim Boyle had his moments. He showed better play than he has at all this year, but the game seemed to move a little too fast for him. He's got to have better decision making, slow down a little bit and try not to overthink things a little too much, and that's really what Tim Boyle did. The game just moved a little too quick. He had to kind of slow things down and just fully take what the defense was giving him, and he just wasn't seeing that. So I'm like I said, I'm in lockstep with you there. I don't think Tim Boyle's a guy who can be a legitimate backup quarterback in this league. I don't necessarily want to see him long term, and I mean, this just goes to show that there's so little to talk about with this Lions team right now because we're talking about the backup quarterback. I mean, there is a couple things we could talk about. Amon-Ra St. Brown, in my opinion, and I'm stamping this right here, right now, Amon-Ra St. Brown is the best offensive weapon that the Lions have on this roster, injured or not.
Yeah, I was actually at the bar watching the game on Sunday, and with my cousin, we were having that exact discussion. Like, is Amon-Ra St. Brown, like, even with a healthy DeAndre Swift and a healthy TJ Hawkinson, is he our best offensive player?
Yes,
is that
I'm stamping that right now because he's proven that has an ability to run the ball on end arounds. He scored this past weekend. He's proven an ability to catch the ball going up against some of the better nickelbacks in the league, and maybe even sometimes drawing some of the better cover corners out there because he is the best pass catcher the Lions have right now. So he is drawing some of the better corners on the defensive sides. And he's still been able to put up what is it now? 4 straight 100-yard games and a touchdown every single week, and 2 this past weekend. From what I've seen in the last month from Amon-Ra St. Brown, he's kind of proven to me that he is the best offensive weapon this team has. DeAndre Swift is a great piece to have when healthy. So is TJ Hawkinson. Don't get me wrong. That guy can be in the conversation of a Pro Bowl tight end every single year when healthy. But I'll tell you right here, right now, I straight up believe Amon-Ra St. Brown is the best weapon that this team has on the offense side of the ball. And that doesn't mean that they're set with him as a number one receiver, because I truly believe he is a slot receiver. He needs to operate inside and draw that nickel back to be fully effective. So they need to find somebody that's effective out wide. But he's a hell of a weapon. And he's making plays happen regardless of the quarterback, whether it be Tim Boyle or Jared Goff. He's made plays. So that tells you that it's very much him and not the guy throwing the ball. He finds ways to get open. He makes the tough catch. He makes the good play. He runs good routes. So in my opinion, he's a steal. And he's a guy that you absolutely can build your wide receiver group with and around. And I hope they continue to do that. Add an outside big time receiver to that, and let's see what actually happens with this team.
Does that ability to spot a guy like Amon-Ra St. Brown in the 4th round of a draft,
you know what's funny?
reinforce your courage, or not courage, your belief in Brad Holmes?
What's
your
funny
trust in Brad Holmes?
Is Brad Holmes, historically speaking, with his draft classes, has absolutely owned the 4th round. Like, the guy has had absolutely fantastic...
specifically the 4th round?
Yes. He's had absolutely fantastic 4th round drafts over, like, in the 4th round. He's been fantastic throughout his career. And
yeah, I mean, Derek Barnes is our other 4th round pick, and he started off the season well. I haven't heard his name called much in the second half of the season.
In his time with the Rams, I know he wasn't the guy calling the shots, but he was a big factor in the shots being called. And in the 4th round, the Rams has been very effective as well. So
yeah,
he owns that round. So yeah, it does give me a little bit of hope for talent recognition there. I hope to see it translate to other rounds of the draft. That's for sure.
So are you saying we should wait till the 4th round to draft a quarterback if we were to draft a quarterback this year?
No, because historically speaking, you'll never find a good quarterback that late. And don't give me Tom Brady. That's 1 in a million.
He wasn't in the 4th round. He's in the 6th.
I know, but that's a 1 in a million situation. It almost will never happen again. But if the Lions are smart, they'll find their quarterback in the 1st round. I'm not saying it's this year, because personally, I do not believe it is this year. I don't think there's a quarterback in this draft that should be a franchise QB for years to come. That's not to say that there isn't one, or isn't a guy that's going to be. I just don't believe that there is right now. I don't.
This doesn't look like it.
I don't think what I've seen from any of the quarterback prospects gives me reason to believe that they can be a franchise QB. So if the Lions don't draft a QB in the 1st round this year, I'm not going to be mad. I'll be straight with you. I will not be mad, because I already know we're locked into Jared Goff for another year as it is.
Yeah.
But what are your thoughts? You're sitting there silent, just staring at me. What's your thoughts?
This was my big selling point. The big selling point for me on Brad Holmes was his ability to spot talent in later rounds. And I'm just happy to actually see it blossom, because I was kind of starting to get worried about it in the first half of the season. But it just kind of reinforces that belief and the reason I wanted Brad Holmes here. And it's a major vote of confidence by me to him, seeing what is becoming of Amon-Ra St. Brown.
Are there any other guys that have kind of showed out to you? Like, are there guys that you can say that
players have flashed in spots, but no one has put together a consistent number of games away. It's trying to get a consistent number of games away Amon-Ra St. Brown has. I mean, we've seen Aaliyah McNeil be pretty good in spots. seen Derek Barnes do pretty good in spots. Penei Sewell, like, yeah, he's been great. You drafted him 7 overall, but like at this point, I feel like you couldn't miss with that 7th pick because of what was taken around there. They're all good. Michael Parsons ended up being really good. Jalen Waddle ends up being really good. If Jamar Chase falling you, he turns out he looks pretty good too. So
yeah, you couldn't really go wrong with that pick after all. So, but either way, I
even Rashawn Slater looks really good. Like.
I've been negative on this team at points in the past. Like there's no doubt about that. And the future at times has not looked very good. However, looking at some of the guys that Brad Holmes is looking to build with in terms of Aleem McNeil, Amani Oruwariye, who isn't necessarily a guy who obviously isn't a guy he drafted, but has taken a huge step up this year. In Amon-Ra St. Brown, in Penei Sewell. We have an offensive line that very possibly could be one of the top 5 O-lines next year. You add it, that sure makes DeAndre Swift's job a hell of a lot easier. It sure makes Jared Goff's job a hell of a lot easier.
Yeah.
So frankly, you start adding some more pieces and more weapons to this team. And don't get me wrong, I think it's no matter what in the draft, it's best player available. But there are guys in this team that you can say, all right, we got something here. And I named a few of them just now, and I there's obviously a few more of them as well. But a lot of the thing that encourages me most about this team moving forward is the guys that I look at as being guys I want to see stay around because not just because they're young, but because they're good, are guys Brad Holmes has brought in for the most part. Obviously, there's a couple mainstays, but that gives me confidence in Brad Holmes as a GM for this team.
Now, I know we only have one game left this season. It's against a Green Bay Packers team that is probably not going to have their starters out there.
No, they've already locked up the number 1 seed. They're done.
So, I mean, I know it's a little early, but I just kind of wanted to just take a second to ask you, in general, going into the season, our expectations were fairly low. We gave Dan Campbell a pretty long leash, and he almost severed that long leash. Came very close to it.
Yes.
Going into next season, I know we still have to see what free agency brings, what the draft brings. But are you expecting to up your expectations, as redundant that sounds? Are you expecting to at least somewhat up your expectations going into next season, or is it still going to be like, we're probably going to win 4 or 5 games?
So I do have to be careful with the expectations for next year just because we still don't have our quarterback. And we're still probably going to be missing we're still probably going to have a lot of holes. Not missing guys, but have a lot of holes on this roster. So I'm not saying I want to see this team competing for playoffs next year. I don't even think this team will necessarily be flirting with 500 next year. But I am looking at measured improvement. I do want to see, instead of 2 wins in a tie, I want to see 5, 6, maybe 7 wins. That right there, I'd be happy with. And I can't really say I want to see us be in games more because for the most part they've been in games. I mean, they've got a winning record against the spread, for God's sakes. But I want to see us, get rid of most of the blowouts that we've had, the 51-29s. And I also want to see this team playing more 4-quarter games.
Yeah.
I don't want to see us falling behind early or getting out to an early lead and then just blowing up in the 3rd quarter. I want to see consistent football from this team. And if it's consistent but not good enough to win, well, I mean, then the roster's just not good enough, and that it is what it is. That's what we expected. But I do want to see this team have measured improvement year over year going into the following year. I mean, I want to see us win 5, 6, 7 games. Absolutely. And it is an expectation because he's had another year with these guys.
The reason I asked is because Chris Burke of The Athletic, he put out an article, and it was basically talking about the Lions lost to the Seahawks, but in it, he was talking about how higher expectations are around the corner for this team. And I'll take a quote from the article. He said, "What this has been in 2021, duct taping together a roster and willing it to stay respectable, won't fly for fans or the players or the coaches themselves when 22 rolls around." So would you say that's accurate, or would you say that...
Repeat that, I'm sorry.
He said, what this has been in 2021, duct taping together a roster and willing it to stay respectable, won't fly for the fans or the players or the coaches themselves when 2022 rolls around.
I'll agree with some of that because you want to see a team start to form. You don't want to just see a team just duct taped to. I mean, this team as it is duct taped together, and it's not built to win. It's just built to play, and it's built to.
You have a piece that could work here, a piece that could work there. Like
I agree with the standpoint.
The only part that feels somewhat complete is the offensive line. It's really the only part.
Yes, absolutely agree. So, yeah, I will say that there is some credibility to that, and there is something to agree with there, that you want to start to see guys fill in the roles that they're going to play. And you want to see them do it effectively and make sure that you have confidence in that guy. You don't want to just see a guy plugged in for a year or so and you just play. I want to start to see the fruits of what we've brought in here. So, yeah, I'll agree with that statement to an extent, but yeah, I'll agree with that statement. Absolutely.
Yeah, like for one, I would, because again, I'm not expecting to find a starting quarterback going into next season, which means my expectations are again going to be tempered. But I would expect to at least find some better depth at the quarterback position, for one. I would expect to find some better depth on the, well, actually, I shouldn't even say that because I kind of like the depth that we've had in defense. We just haven't had the top end talent. But I would expect to add a couple pieces on defense. But yeah, in general, at least see the borders of a canvas forming.
I want to see the guys that we think are going to be a part of this team play effective.
Yeah.
I want to say play effectively. But I want to see Aleem McNeil making plays in the D-line, stopping the run, creating havoc in the backfield. I want to see Aruarie and Ifeatu Melifonwu breaking up passes and creating turnovers in the defensive secondary. Panay Sewell and that offensive line being the anchor for that offense. DeAndre Swift making plays. St. Brown making plays. These are guys that and Hawkinson making plays. These are guys you expect to be a part of the future of this franchise. Well, I want to see it start to come to fruition next year with these guys, along with some of the guys that we draft this year or in this upcoming draft. I want to see that happen.
Now, my final question on the Lions is just looking at a couple of our 2022 draft or 2020 draft picks. Guys like Quintez Cephas and the damn corner.
Ifeatu Melifonwu?
No, from Ohio State.
Oh, Jeff Okudah. Woof.
Jeff Okudah. Jesus.
Ouch. Ouch.
So those are two guys that we saw get hurt early on in the season. My last question to you here was, what are we expecting out of them in 2022? Are we expecting Quintez Cephas to take a major step forward the way we saw Amon-Ra St. Brown do in the second half of this year? Are we expecting Jeff Okudah to take a step forward the way we saw Melifonwu do? The way we saw Melifonwu took this year.
For guys like that, I think they're going to be in a situation where they have to. Because if they don't, they won't be a part of this franchise for very long. Because it seems to me that guys like Dan Campbell and Brad Holmes aren't necessarily in love with the previous regime's guys. Mm-hmm. They just have to play them right now, and they're willing to replace them if they need to. And they will. So I think it's in a situation with some of those guys where they absolutely have to, or they're not going to be playing here. So, yeah, I do think we will for at least some of those guys, and some may not, some may not.
Does what this coaching staff be able to pull out Melifonwu give you any sort of hope for Okudah?
Yes, it does. And it's because I think you're going to start to see Okudah, this defense game plan a little bit more for what Okudah's strengths are. And that's how he should be played. He's not a man cover corner. He is a guy who plays a cover three, plays his own style. And that's okay. Those guys can be successful in this league. They just have to be game planned for. You have to put them in the best position to win and not try to make them a player that they're not. I mean, the Lions really should have learned their lesson with Joey Harrington. I know it was a totally different regime and era, but they did the same thing to Joey Harrington. They tried to make him a quarterback that he wasn't, and obviously it didn't work. So hopefully the Lions have learned their lesson there, and they put guys like Okudah in the best possible scenario to succeed.
That's all I have to say about this football team. I don't know about you.
I'm going to agree with you. Let's move on.
Because I do agree. This coaching staff has kind of given me renewed hope that something could be pulled out of Okudah from just because of what I saw to Melifonwu. And some of the even some of the corners that I wasn't expecting to see anything out of. Like, again, guy's name's escaping me. In terms of Quintez Cephas, I don't know. Like, I don't know if I would say this coaching staff doesn't like him in terms of like not liking the players from previous regime. Because if I remember correctly, like he was getting plays drawn up for him a decent amount in the beginning of the season. He really didn't find the end zone much. But either way, I think he is the exact type of wide receiver that perfectly complements Amon-Ra St. Brown. So I'm hoping that he fills that role fairly well, kind of like he did the first 2 games of the season this year. But no, I think I'm more optimistic going into 2022 with those 2 guys than I was going into 2021.
100% agree. All right, let's go ahead and move on to the Pistons here. Andrew, go ahead and take it away.
Most of the games that occurred between now and the last time we recorded was the Motor City Cruise, actually, playing against NBA teams. And I faded them every single time, and I lost almost every single time. In the next game, I actually bought the spread out to 16.5 when the spread was only at 8.5. I took the regular spread too, but I wanted to take one that was juiced a little bit. The juice one did not hit, and the 8.5 barely hit. San Antonio, they won outright.
Yeah.
And then
to heroic efforts from, was it Sadiq Bey and Hamidou Diallo in that game?
Yep. Sadiq and Hamidou, I mean, part of it was necessity, but
those guys stepped up big time.
My impression of Hamidou has gone well up in those 3 games, but it doesn't seem like Casey's intent on drawing up a bigger role for him now. What it sounded like in interviews was that Hamidou's just going to go back to his regular role, which I feel like what he did kind of earns him a little more flexibility.
I'm going to agree with you. I think the way Diallo has played should have at the very least, earned him a bigger role on this team. Like he was good. And I know in the last game it was more Josh Jackson than him, but he still played very well. And I know it was out of necessity, and it really showed in those games where you basically had the G League roster with some 10 days. It really showed who the actual NBA players were.
Yeah.
But regardless, he still played well. And, some of his, I don't know if it was work ethic or effort has been in question by Dwayne Casey throughout this year, but he played really well in those games. And he seems to have a hot hand, so why Dwayne Casey isn't just going to ride the hot hand until it proves you otherwise, that doesn't quite make sense to me, because it's not like it's not like they're bringing back a guy like Kyrie Irving or James Harden. I mean, Cade Cunningham's a good player.
Even Jerami Grant. It's Cade and Sadiq right now. Those are your scores.
Answer this for me. Why can't Sadiq Bey fill the Grant role and Hamidou Diallo fill Sadiq's role? Why can't that happen?
That's basically kind of what happened with the G League squad. And, well, basically since Jerami Grant's been out, I mean, Sadiq's kind of shifted over to the power forward and took in Grant's role a bit.
And you know what? I'm going to
Hamidou has moved in the starting lineup at the 3. It's just he hasn't had the kind of leeway that I think and I shouldn't say hasn't, because he earned it during this whole COVID protocol stint, but at least on Monday, he didn't have the kind of leeway I was expecting him to have after what he showed in those 3 games.
No, and I agree with you. And I'm going to come out here and say that, Sadiq Bey is a good player. I know it's not exactly a hot take, but I will say this. However, I don't think he's able to play with both Cade Cunningham and Jerami Grant. I think he has to play with one or the other to be truly effective. And we're kind of seeing that this year, because you look at last year where he played with Jerami Grant. He was a really good player. You look at this year, when he's played with just Cade, he's been a really good player. But when he's played with both, he was vastly disappointing.
Yeah.
But if you look at his last, I want to say it's a 9-game stretch, since December 16th or December 9th or something like that, he's had 1 game below 20 points. 1.
Headband Deke. You want to know his averages?
They're ridiculous. Like I said, he's had one game below 20 points since December 9th.
Since Jerami Grant got hurt and Saddiq Bey put on the headband, he's been averaging 25 points, 8.6 boards, and 3.2 assists on 44% shooting from the field, 38% from three. This is over the course of 9 games.
I'm sorry, December 16th. So yeah, since December 16th, that's the 9 games I'm referring to.
Mm-hmm.
One game below 20 points.
Yep.
One. And that's since Jerami Grant got hurt. So what I'm beginning to learn here is that Saddiq Bey should be in Jerami Grant's role long term.
I also did some number crunching today, just because I was sitting here. We talked about this last week, and it's been something that I've been constantly thinking about. Like, what exact is it? Just not being able to play with Jerami Grant? Like, what is going on? And so I started just taking a look at the analytics of that. I calculated the team's assists per game up until Jerami Grant got hurt, and then in the period after. I did not include the G League games because it wasn't even the same team. So I excluded those games from the sample size because it would have just unnecessarily juiced the numbers. But assists per game when with Jerami Grant was at 21.3, which put us in the bottom 3 of the league. Once Jerami Grant got hurt, we were averaging 24.7, which is good enough for top 10 in the league.
So the ball moves more.
Yep, with Jerami Grant assist percentage, we're most of the made shots, 60% of makes were assisted, 64% without Jerami Grant. Pace of play also 97.1 possessions per game versus 105 without Jerami Grant. Ball moves more efficiently. So
are we saying Jerami Grant is the problem on this team? No, the fan report is saying Jerami Grant's the problem. No, I'm kidding. Jerami Grant.
I mean, we've talked about how Jerami Grant is our best offensive player, but we've also talked about how he can be a bit of a ball stopper. Yeah, I'm not saying that I want Jerami Grant off this team. All I'm saying with that is, I think we might need to redefine roles a little bit on this team. Like, maybe Jerami Grant shouldn't have the ball in his hands as much as he does when he's playing.
And
maybe he should get more touches, and Jerami Grant should maybe put a little more focus on facilitating while still getting his shots too.
And I'm going to agree with you. Like, I do think the roles need to change with this team, and I think they need to change for what we anticipate the future to look like. And
mm-hmm.
I think Saddiq Bey needs to be more involved and have the ball in his hands more, because obviously he can be effective with it in his hands.
Mm-hmm.
And I said that I don't think Saddiq Bey can be effective with both Cade and Jerami Grant on the floor, and I'm going to stand by that because it pushes him into a role that the ball's just not in his hands enough. He's relegated to a spot up shooting duty, and that's not the player he is.
Yeah.
So if you take one of those guys out, and again, you look at last year where you had Grant but not Cunningham, he was good. You look at this year, when you just have Cade with him, he's still good. When you have both Grant and Cunningham, though, that's where you see Saddiq's effectiveness drastically fall off. And for the future of the franchise, I think it would behoove them to give Saddiq the Jerami Grant role. Put the ball in his hands. Because, like you mentioned, the ball moves more when it's in Bey's hands over Grant's.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not me saying that Grant can't play here, isn't a good player, but things need to change offensively, because we've been saying it all year. This offense hasn't looked cohesive. It's looked disjointed. Well, we may have found one of the answers here. We may have discovered a kink in the armor or a kink in the chain.
Mm-hmm. I think one of my favorite quotes, James Edwards actually asked Saddiq Bey about why he started wearing the headband. And Saddiq said, last year I tried to put it on. It didn't look right. My hair wasn't the shape I wanted it to be. This was just completely a coincidence. And then James, he said, James Edwards elaborated on the quote, saying, to elaborate, it was a coincidence that his hair shape was to his liking and fitting for a headband. Meanwhile, as he grew flamethrowers. And it's honestly what it feels like.
I've loved watching Saddiq play over the last 9 games, and it truly makes me excited for the future of this team, and it only pushes me more and more towards. I truly believe they need to find a way to trade Jerami Grant at the deadline. I truly believe it, because This, like, Sadiq Bey and Cade Cunningham together just looked so good against Milwaukee. Just so good. And that's without even the rest of their team. Like, yeah, Josh Jackson played great, but they didn't have Isaiah Stewart. Luka Garza, if I recall, wasn't exactly a monster. They didn't have Kelly Olynyk. Like, this team wasn't the full roster of talent, and that's including Graham. But it tells you that you can rely on your top two young players in Bey and Cunningham to win you a tough game. Milwaukee's a damn good team.
Yeah, that was a damn impressive win. I took Milwaukee to cover, I think it was 16.5, because I'm like, oh, they're going to all be rusty after having not played basketball in over a week. Nope.
No, they looked amazing. They looked great. They honestly, that Milwaukee game was quite possibly the best game they played all year.
All I'm saying is I'm taking credit for these last two Pistons wins because I bet against them and everything I bet loses. So,
yeah, you're tailing the wrong people or something, but
I tail no one. I tail myself.
But no, I want to kind of go back to what I was saying though. This is really starting to push me towards we need to trade Jerami Grant at the deadline. So I'm curious to hear your thoughts on that. Are you in that same boat?
I wouldn't say like it's in this like we have to get rid of him this deadline. I'm definitely what I've seen from Sadiq Bey since Grant's got hurt has made me a lot more open. Not that I wasn't open to it before, but it's made me even more open accepting to the idea of moving Jerami Grant. I do feel like this deadline is probably your best. I feel like the longer you wait, the less attractive an asset's going to be. Really, the only thing you have going for you next year is that it's a $20 million expiring deal. That's
right.
You just have to hope that he doesn't actually suffer a serious injury this time. That's the worry. But it's funny you should bring that up though, because another article published on The Athletic by James Edwards III poses a few Jerami Grant trade scenarios. I'd be curious to get your thoughts on them. You down?
Oh, I was just gonna, sit tight and listen. Of course I'm down.
So there's only a handful. The first one is with the Hawks, and this is one that we've actually heard float around Pistons Twitter, Pistons Reddit. This one's nothing new. Jerami Grant and Josh Jackson for Danilo Galinari and Cam Reddish. Now keep in mind, Danilo Galinari is a $20 million contract. However, it expires next year with next year's the last year of the deal, and only $5 million is guaranteed as long as you you waive him by June, if I remember correctly.
You could technically cut Galinari if you didn't like him. $5 million is chump change.
Yep. So so basically the idea here
to these teams. Let me just say that $5 million to you and I is a different story.
The idea here, the way I view it, is you're looking for Cam Reddish and $15 million in cap savings,
which they are going to need.
Grant and Josh Jackson. I
like it, but I'm going to say this: it's predicated on the play of Hamidou Diallo. Mm-hmm. If Hamidou Diallo can continue to step up, I should say, and play effective minutes and play an effective role off the bench for this team, I love it. Because he would basically... Because let's be real, Josh Jackson and Hamidou Diallo are redundant at this point with this team.
Yes.
So you remove a problem of redundancy by getting rid of Josh Jackson, who's probably not a part of your future anyways. You save
I'll always say this after maybe his best game was...
I know. But you save $15 million in cap space, which you are going to need if you want to bring in a big-time free agent.
Yeah.
And you add a guy in Cam Reddish who is a young, budding, I don't want to say star, but really good player in this league.
With still the potential to be a star.
Yeah, absolutely. Because I'll be straight with you, I really liked what I've seen from Cam Reddish so far. So he's got a lot of talent.
I do a proposal for you, too. You've advocated for a split between Cade and Killian, where we have Killian head the bench unit while Cade heads up the starters.
Still believe it's needed.
What if we did that, moved Diallo to the 2, Reddish slots in at the 3, and then you got Deke at the 4?
I think it'll work in small ball situations. I think some of the teams that utilize more size and muscle will overpower you, and you'll start to struggle a little bit there, especially defensively. I do like it, but I would like to see more of a shooting presence at the 2. I'd like to see Diallo come off the bench at the 2 or the 3, just to give us a little more firepower off the bench. And I want to see somebody who is more of a scorer on the starting unit at the 2. Long term. Obviously, if you want to talk this year, yes, that's a very solid plan going forward. But for the rest of this year, but long term, I'd rather see more scoring power at the 2. I have no problem with Reddish at the 3 and Sadiq at the 4 long term. But right here, right now, I have no problem with that going forward. I stand by Killian should be off the bench as a facilitator and defensive juggernaut in the second unit.
Yeah.
So I have no like I said, it is predicated on Diallo's play going into the deadline. If he's not playing well, then it doesn't entirely make as much sense because then we're still having to decide between, okay, is it Diallo or Jackson long term? Because then you're looking at one guy, because then you're looking at getting rid of one guy who's probably a long term player on your roster. That hurts a little bit more. But, I mean, in all reality, there's a very good possibility neither one of those two guys in Diallo and Josh Jackson are your long term answer.
Yeah.
So, frankly, getting Cam Reddish for 2 guys who probably aren't in your long-term plans, I can think of worse things.
Yeah. No, I really like this trade because, again, you get that young asset who could be part of your long-term plans, and you get, I think, something very valuable, which $15 million in cap space. You're not going to get young asset, $15 million cap space, and a pick. You're at most getting 2 of those 3 things.
You're not getting a Cam Reddish caliber player and a pick.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
So, I think this is one of those best case scenario kind of trades for Jerami Grant. This one with the Bulls, Jerami Grant and Jerami Grant alone for Derrick Jones Jr., Matt Thomas, and Patrick Williams.
There's a lot of people in the NBA fandom and that of people who follow the NBA that are just huge fans of P. Will. I'm not gonna lie to you, I'm not one of them.
Neither am I.
I'm not one of them. Like he does.
The Pistons were one of them. Remember that?
Yes, he does a lot of things and does a lot of things decently, effectively. But I don't think he does anything truly, truly well. Like he's a Swiss Army knife that's just not that sharp. Like he's a solid player, but I always look at Patrick Williams as a rotational guy, a do-it-all rotational guy, like a Nick Batum or a PJ Tucker or someone along those lines. I don't think he's a guy that is going to turn this franchise around and be a guy we can build around. I don't see it with Patrick Williams. This one doesn't excite me anywhere near as much.
The best thing he gives you is versatility, and the versatility is useless if he doesn't actually develop past the rawness that he's at right now. So, no, I agree with you. That nothing attracts me about this trade. I don't care about getting Derrick Jones Jr. He's just a dunker. He's an athlete. That's really it. I'll be honest with you.
Matt Thomas.
I don't even know who Matt Thomas is either. But it's $1.7 million expiring money.
Woo!
Now, to be fair, Derrick Jones is almost $10 million in expiring money right there.
Yeah, that's helpful.
So I guess similar to what you're looking at between Derrick Jones and Matt Thomas, you have like 11.3 coming off the books, and then you get Pat Williams.
However,
it's less money than the Hawks trade, and it's a player I want a lot less than Cam Reddish. So
and you also got to look at it this way: this upcoming offseason isn't the offseason we expect the Pistons to make a big move.
Correct.
Next one is the year that Jerami Grant comes off the books. So having the money come off the books a year sooner doesn't necessarily really help us as much as we hope.
Yeah.
So, because this isn't the free agency market we're aiming for next year's.
Not to mention, we'd probably have to throw in someone like a Rodney McGruder or something just to make the rosters work in this trade.
Which, honestly, that doesn't matter to me.
Yeah. Next one up is the Pacers. And this is another trade that we've actually discussed.
Okay.
Jerami Grant for Miles Turner and Keelan Martin.
This one I can get on board with also. Because, again, Miles Turner fills a need. We need a big body down low that can rebound, that can play defense, that can block shots, that can stop some of the bigger and better centers from pushing you around down low.
Yep.
And it's
and he's young enough for it.
Right, and it can fill the long-term hole. So, yeah, because the way I look at Jerami Grant, he is a good player, so I'm not willing to just take nothing for him. Like, I'm not willing to just throw him away and get whatever I can get. I want good assets out of it. I want assets that I can build with long-term. And I would consider Miles Turner to be one of those guys. I'd build with Miles Turner anchoring at the 5 down low. Absolutely. So, yeah, I like this trade also.
I agree. I've said that if there's any, I think that Miles Turner is probably like your best bet coming from the Pacers because I don't think you're going to get Sabonis. And I think Miles Turner is a harder type of player to fill on your roster than a guy like Karis LeVert, who, albeit it's probably the better player on paper, there's also many more of him around the league.
I was going to say, there's a lot more Karis LeVerts than there are Miles Turners in this league. I
personally would do this trade in a heartbeat. Knowing how much size his team lacks.
And in all reality, even though Jerami Grant probably is the better player between the two, it just makes more sense for this team.
Yeah.
And long term. And I that's why I like the trade.
And then you're spaced with Cunningham, Sadiq, and Miles Turner. It's a beautifully spaced team.
Absolutely. Like that team right there, they can compete. They can compete. Because look at the Pacers who you on paper would think would compete, but look at that roster now. Sabonis, Turner, and LeVert. Granted, they also have Brogdon. But how different is that Pacers team to what the Pistons would have with Turner, Bey, and Cade?
Pacers don't have a Bey-type player.
Right. I would tell you that the Pistons would have more spacing. Probably even a little bit, not even a little, but a lot of bit better guard play, point guard play. So I think you would look at the Pistons with Turner in Bey, Cunningham, and Turner.
Wasn't Brogdon like one of the floor comps for Cade Cunningham through the draft process?
Yes. Cade is a better player right now than Malcolm Brogdon is. And I love Malcolm Brogdon. I think he's a very good player. But I think Cade right now is a better player than Malcolm Brogdon. Yeah.
All right. Final trade. With the Memphis Grizzlies, you trade Jerami Grant and Corey Joseph. Thank you, Jesus. The Grizzlies trade away Kyle Anderson, who is on a $10 million expiring deal.
Okay.
D'Anthony Melton, Zaire Williams, and a 2022 first.
You know, those are a lot of names. What are the protections in the first?
Not specified.
None? Okay. Oh, not specified. Okay. I would expect at least a lottery protected on that, but those are a lot of names that don't really move the needle for me. But obviously a first-round pick is enticing. I would have to know what the protections are in that pick to really give you a full answer. But
what if it's unprotected? Since no protections are mentioned.
If that's the best offer on the table, yeah, I'd probably take it.
Yeah. I mean, like, I would have been a lot more excited about Zaire Williamson before his freshman year at Stanford.
Zaire Williams, yeah.
Yeah, like, he looked bad enough at Stanford where I was completely off of him for the draft process, let alone want to trade for him.
Like, don't get me wrong. It's not a bad trade for the Pistons. I'll be straight with you. I thought that Cam Reddish and the Miles Turner trades were just better. I would still do this trade if it's the best offer on the table, but it doesn't have me jumping for joy as much as the other two probably would.
Yeah. I kind of like the idea of Anthony Melton coming off the bench, and I like the $10 million expiring with Kyle Anderson because I don't think we keep him around.
Right. Well, how much do you like Anthony Melton coming off the bench if Killian's coming off the bench?
If Killian's coming off the bench, it's a different story.
Right.
I want Killian to get those bench minutes. What I'm saying is I'd rather have D'Anthony Melton off the bench than Corey Joseph. That's all I'm saying.
That's fair.
But I think
Kojo has played some meaningful minutes for this Pistons team this year.
So I think it's safe to say our two favorites were the Hawks and the Pacers ones, right?
Yes, absolutely. And I would still do the Grizzlies one, but it just doesn't, like, I would do it if, like I said, if it's the best offer out there. Like, if the other two offers were out on the table, I'd go for one of those two.
Yeah. So now if I had to make you pick between Cam Reddish and $15 million off the books for Jerami Grant and Josh Jackson, or Miles Turner for Jerami Grant, Miles Turner and Keelan Martin, but basically Miles Turner for Jerami Grant straight up.
Oh, man.
Which one are you doing?
What's Turner's contract look like?
He's got 2 years, 18 mil per year.
So you're probably talking after those 2 years, at least a $5 to $7 million pay increase.
Mm-hmm.
Oh man! And Cam Reddish is still on his rookie deal. How many years he got left on that? 3?
Nope. After this year, has one more year left. It's the same as Miles Turner.
Okay.
Yep.
He's probably due for a big pay increase, but I don't think it'll be as large as Turner's, maybe.
It's not going to be a max, that's for sure.
I don't think Turner's will be either. But
I could see Cam Reddish getting... Can you see Cam Reddish getting a Jerami Grant deal?
yes, absolutely. I think that'd be a perfect deal for Cam Reddish. Maybe even a little bit more, like 22, 23 mil a year. Mm-hmm. But, oh man, that's tough. Cam
Two
Reddish
completely
is
different position.
Right, and Cam Reddish excites me more as a player.
Yep.
But Miles Turner, I feel like, fills a bigger need. Like, I don't want to see my concern. I have one concern with Cam Reddish. I don't want to create the same scenario that you have with Jerami Grant.
Yeah.
And Sadiq Bey. Like, I think Cam Reddish.
Well, he's shown not to be as ball dominant, but maybe it grows into that because Jerami Grant wasn't that ball dominant with Denver, obviously.
Right.
So, I mean, I do have an answer.
All right, give me your answer.
I think I've come to a conclusion. I think I'm going to go with the Cam Reddish and 15 million savings for
that. I'm
major
that
reason
is
is
the player.
There's that. A lot of undiscovered. I feel like there's higher potential.
Yes.
With Cam Reddish. Another major reason is actually where this team is headed in the draft and how this draft is very power forward center.
I was going to say there's a lot of big men in this draft
heavy.
that are pretty damn good.
So we might be able to fill that. We should be able to fill that need in this draft, and then that kind of negates the need for Miles Turner. So I think I lean the Hawks trade.
I'm gonna, you know what? Now that you bring up the path of the draft, I'm gonna have to agree with you. Like, I like Cam Reddish as a player a little bit more than I like Miles Turner, even though Miles Turner is more of a sure thing. Mm-hmm. But knowing that there's a high likelihood that the Pistons are able to find their big man in the draft versus finding a guy to kind of play that Cam Reddish role, which is unlikely. I'm gonna go with the Cam Reddish trade as well. That would be my top deal.
Yeah, as long as we're not as long as it's not going to be in our Blake Griffin deal, I'm good.
No, thank you. I ain't trading any first. If you're the Pistons, you can't trade any first round picks. You can't.
I still right here, right now. I would still rather have. I wish we still had Tobias Harris.
I agree with you, and don't get me wrong. Blake played one hell of a year for us. Yeah. The rest of the years he was here were garbage.
Keyword 1.
Yeah. But I think Tobias Harris long term is just. I can't say a better player. It just would have made more sense for this team. Anyways, anything else you got?
Yeah. Before we close this out, as
all right,
tradition,
let's hear it.
I want to take a look at the spread for Sunday's Lions game. Where would you put it at?
Against Green Bay, knowing that probably they're suiting up Matt LaFleur's kid to play quarterback. I'll tell you right now, I'm putting it less than 7. I'd probably.
You're still favoring Green Bay?
I'd probably put Green Bay minus 5.5.
Or minus 2.5 as it stands currently.
Oh, okay. All right. Wow.
I guess I'm giving this as of Tuesday night.
Green Bay's backups. Okay.
So I assume you're taking Green Bay minus 2.5. It is in Ford Field.
Knowing the Lions in the final week game of the year against the backups, somebody's going to throw for 500 yards and 5 touchdowns and earn himself a $90 million contract, a la Matt Flynn.
Oh, God.
I still, to this day, I still don't know how that happened. I mean, I know how it happened. I just don't know why.
Don't know how it happened.
Yeah.
But no, that's all I got.
Would you take Green Bay minus 2.5?
I think I honestly think I might take the Lions money line.
You know, that's
home
fair.
Against Green Bay's backups. Only guy I'm scared of at this point would be AJ Dillon. We've actually been.
I'll be honest with you. That's a guy I don't even know if he's going to see the field. Like, I think Green Bay is going to be so conservative with their roster, you probably won't even see most of their second string guys.
Yeah.
Just in case.
And considering we're not playing in the frozen tundra of Lambeau, and considering we're probably going to play hard because we do that. I was
going to say, you'll probably have a lot of guys for the Lions fired up and playing hard because they're playing for jobs.
Yeah.
They're playing to come back next year. So, yeah, I think you'll see like guys like Josh Reynolds, if he can be healthy, he'll probably play hard. Alex Anzalone, he'll probably play hard. Like, there's guys out there that are going to be playing for their jobs. Charles Harris.
I'll tell you, I can definitely see this line flipping by Sunday. I can see it crossing the bridge where the Lions are favored.
I can see it cross the bridge. I know I said Packers minus 5.5, but really thinking about it, I really don't expect to see much of the Packers anything. Mm-hmm. Like, I think you will see their Pee-wee football team. And if I'm and honestly though, I'd do the same thing if I'm the Packers. Mm-hmm. I would literally tell all of their guys, all of my guys that start and even play second string, stay home. I will go and find people off the street if I have to. Don't even come to the game.
So I'm assuming you're going to take the under at 43 then too.
Yeah, probably. Well, I don't know. Lions could break that. Lions could be a big factor in breaking that. Like they could put up some points, especially if Jared Goff's back. I
don't see why bring Jared Goff back. But
I mean, just give him a chance to play. But either way, it doesn't. We're talking about something that does not matter.
Yeah,
it's a week 18, the 17th game of the year versus a 2-win football team and the third stringers of the other. So it does not matter.
Final question: as of this recording, the Pistons are undefeated in 2022. They're 2-0. How long does this last?
It ends their next game. I can't have confidence in a 6-win basketball team. More than a third of the way through the year.
Oh my god!
I can't have confidence. Like I'll be honest with you. I was shocked they won 2 straight.
I'm actually really excited to watch Wednesday night's game.
I am too.
LaMelo versus Cade. That's gonna be fun to watch.
And hell, I'm going to the game Monday night against the Jazz. Like I'm excited about that one. And
I went to the 2 COVID games. That was
I can't wait.
Saw that up close and personal.
I haven't gotten to see it happen. I can't wait to watch Cade play. I can't wait.
I was hoping to see it up close, but I've seen him a few times.
Yeah. Look at you being by the way, look at you being a high roller baller lately, sitting courtside.
I never sat courtside in my life.
I have one.
And then I dog sat for my cousin, and then like as a thank you, he had courtside tickets. So he's like, "You want to go to the game on Wednesday?" I'm like, "Hell yeah, I want to go to the game on Wednesday." And then, the COVID stuff happened. And then I'm like, well, this game's not going to be quite as fun, but hey, it's still courtside. But I had hope. So while I was there, I get a call from one of my good buddies from high school. I get a call from their dad asking what I'm doing Saturday. It's kind of out of the blue. And I'm like, nothing. And he's like, "You still a Pistons fan?" I'm like, "Always will be." He's like, "You want to go to the game on Saturday?" I'm like, "Coincidentally, I'm at the game right now, but sure." He sends me tickets. They're the exact same row, exact same section that I'm currently sitting.
Nice.
But I had some hope that we'd have some guys out of COVID protocol by then, but we didn't. But it was still fun nonetheless. I'll be honest with you though, that courtside bar thing that they opened up this year, awesome.
Is it? Awesome. From the videos you sent me, it looks pretty sweet. Yep. It looks like a good time. And respect to LCA.
Both times I was there,
Gores.
Johnny Kane and Greg Kells were hanging out over there. I mean, we had the gun safety guy from TikTok hanging out over there.
Nice. And respect to Tom Gores and LCA and the Illich family for doing things like that. Because bringing entertainment value that goes beyond the play on the floor or on the ice is a big thing to stadiums. I mean, Comerica Park does a great job of it. And that's something I do feel like some of these teams in this city have lacked in the past. Like, I think the Lions just can't figure it out because they just don't give a shit. But the Pistons always had at least decent things to do around the Palace, and to see it coming to LCA, I love it. I love seeing stuff like that in the stadium because that opens up the environment for people who, for everybody to go. Like, everybody can go and have a good time at LCA, and that's what I like to see. So props to them. And
I can't remember if this was there 2 years ago, but they, in the second level, they have an entire craft beer bar. They have Founders has their own bar up there, and then right by there's one that has like North Peak Bells, Three Floyds.
They opened that
but it's all like in the same little. Well, last year there were no fans. So that's what I'm saying.
then
I can't remember if 2 years ago it was there or not.
God,
but
last year there were no fans, man.
yeah. You haven't been a
year
Pistons game in 2 years, Nick.
Like in terms of, I know, in terms of sports world, like last year doesn't exist to me.
Like I think last time I went to a Pistons game, Andre Drummond might still have been on the team.
Oh my God, you might be right. Ew. Thank God I'm going next week. I'm so stoked to go watch Cade play.
Yeah.
You have no idea.
You'll have a good time.
Oh, I'm sure. And we got great seats too. It's, a thank you from the Pistons organization to healthcare workers. So, my girlfriend's a healthcare worker. So, big thanks to her. So,
Hey, let me know if there's some seats available next year. I might crash the party.
I'll tell you where our seats are, and you can go ahead and look. I don't hate that idea. But all right, anything else to add before we close out?
No, that's everything I got.
All right, so that's gonna be it, guys. Thank you so much for joining us and hanging out and listening. Thank you to Detroit Sports Podcast, always, and Andrew. Thank you for joining me. Follow us on Twitter @RealFanReport. We will catch you guys next week. Hopefully we have a couple, one or two more Pistons wins to talk about. Because I'll be honest, it's a lot more fun talking about a winning basketball team than a losing one. So,
Yep.
Well, this has been the Fan Reporters. Bye, fans.
For fans.
We'll catch you guys next week. Have a good one. Happy New Year. Peace out.
Peace.